Saturday night under the lights at Richmond, 400 laps for the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series that saw the local hero heartbroken, strategy shuffle the standings, and Kyle carrying the crown.
Green flag goes back in the air. 4 wide off in turn number 1. They'll never make it through that corner.
And Kyle Busch is round Carl Edwards for second. He wants a piece of the lead.
Kyle Busch trying to make something happen and realizes he's going to have to get physical.
And the battle for the lead is on.
Here comes Kyle, roaring back on the outside, going after the lead.
Kyle Busch and the Toyota to the point. He'll complete the pass.
Kyle Busch will win.
And it's a birthday celebration.
He claims his first victory here in Richmond, Virginia.
Kyle Busch made a brilliant late charge from 4th to 1st, then led the final 49 laps to score the win Saturday night at Richmond. His series-leading 3rd victory of the year. The finishing order really shuffled by tire strategy, which took some guys who'd been running up front most all night, like, say, Denny Hamlin, who led the most laps and left them with rather disappointing results. The roundtable review of the Richmond racing is next on NASCAR Now. From the Home Depot Garage Studio, we welcome you to the Yup, He Did It Again edition of the NASCAR Now Monday Roundtable. Let's see, 15 cautions, 21 lead changes. Richmond lived up to the nickname the Action Track on Saturday night, giving our panel plenty of action to review. We welcome to the program Randy LaJoy, NASCAR Now reporter Angelique Shengelis, and Ricky Craven. Your Drive of the Day award from Saturday night would go to whom?
Sam Hornish.
Very good nominee.
Tony Stewart / Ryan Newman.
Great nominee.
Kyle Busch.
And that's a great place to start. Let's begin our review of the Richmond race Saturday night with the night of Kyle Busch. After winning the nationwide race Friday night, Kyle started 14th, ran in the lead group for the opening half of the race, but doesn't actually lead a lap until late. He does have a few interesting moments here in traffic. He and Brian Vickers kind of a little do-si-do. Bump, then a bump back. Thank you very much.
They're bump drafted at Richmond.
That's what it was, yeah. On a restart, at the 3/4 mark of the race here, Kyle goes after Ryan Newman in the 39 car for the lead. He gets it briefly, then gives it back up as Newman is able to get back by him. So Kyle's still in the hunt in the top 5. Key moment now, under caution, lap 3:08. Kyle's going to pit for 4 tires. It was his last stop of the night, and then he's going to begin the charge.
And the charge it was. He's just remarkable from here on out.
60 to go. Passes Denny Hamlin for 4th. There's Kyle in traffic by Denny Hamlin. Then 56 to go. Passes Jamie McMurray for 3rd. Caution comes out. They set him up for the restart. 50 to go on the restart. Watch this move by Kyle.
You notice a trend here, guys? Always to the outside. No obstruction. Drive it deep in the corner. He took care of business on the first 5 or 10.
And look at this. Did anybody else besides me go, ooh, 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 when he tried to split the lap car and Jeff Gordon?
Outside, inside, middle, it didn't matter. If there was a hole, he was taking it.
The winning pass right there, 48 to go. Kyle Busch by Jeff Gordon. From there, he opens up a big lead. Then in the closing laps, Tony Stewart on fresher tires starts to get a little larger in the rearview mirror of the 18 car, but there was enough margin to make it work. And happy birthday, Kyle, a big trophy for a present.
You know, the momentum that we had here this weekend was pretty good, but the past 4 weeks have been struggles for us. We haven't finished, I don't think, in the top 17, so it's been kind of a rough spell for us a little bit. You know, we were looking to come back here to Richmond and get back on track just to run a solid race and actually finish in the top 10 and hopefully the top 5 and have a chance to win the thing. And fortunately, we were able to do that.
It was a great performance, just very nerve-wracking. He gave me a win on my birthday in Daytona last year, so got him a win for his birthday tonight at Richmond.
We love Richmond. Great racetrack, great fans. I always feel at home because, you know, there's a lot of Redskin people here, so all the hospitalities and everything are great for me, but a big night, obviously, and a big weekend for Kyle.
Wish there was as many Busch fans as there are Redskin fans around here.
That's a good comment you have when you said, I'm sure they were all here to see me.
On my birthday, right?
It's your Kyle.
Kyle Busch has 50 NASCAR wins. Amazing since he won his first race in 2004. Now, since the Truck Series became the sport's 3rd national touring series in 1995, Only 2 drivers have more victories than the 24-year-old Busch. Jeff Gordon with 82 and Mark Martin with 60. Greg Biffle has 50 wins. His first came in 1999. Pretty amazing what Kyle and his group have accomplished. A couple things I made note of as I watched the race on Saturday night that I want to talk over with all of you now. First, the charges to the lead and the restarts. Ricky, you mentioned a minute ago when we were looking at the highlights, but the outside moves by Kyle Busch, that he seemed to be able to go where others feared to tread.
Yeah, no question. I think that's where he was better than all other drivers Saturday night. He took advantage, capitalized on cold tires, new tires. Every restart, he jumped to the outside and overdrove maybe, but made it work. And that's where he made his moves and gained his spots.
The reason that was allowed to happen, though, Alan, is because of Steve Addington. I think Kyle Busch needs to give him a nice gift-wrap birthday present, because he made the right call on lap 308, taking the 4 tires, and that, I think, enabled Kyle to make that push.
Yeah, it was interesting. We saw the restart where Kyle jumped to the outside and got a couple spots, but there he had the lead on that late restart, had to defend from Jeff Gordon. Easier said than done.
Correct. What he did, he jumped out in the lead. He knew those guys were coming on sticker tires. He goes, I got to put a buffer here. I don't want to get a caution. I want to give these guys 3 seconds. And he did. He pulled away 3 seconds. And those guys only closed up about 1.5 seconds. He knew what he had. He had a good race car. You know, it took him 300 laps to get to the front, but once he gets there, you better look out. It's hard to beat him.
When Tony Stewart got to second on the fresher tires, anybody have any doubts about the race's outcome?
Yellow flag. I needed a yellow flag.
That's what you were looking for?
It's one of those times where I wish he could have 20, 30 more laps just to see, because Tony, I think, really had definitely the tires issue was in his favor.
Two-lap restart, I'll take Kyle Busch every time, but this was going to be iffy because of the rubber.
If there had been another caution, does Kyle still win the race?
There would have been 2 more cautions.
While they were wrecking, yeah, but does Kyle still win the race?
You know, Tony's awful hungry to win in his own race car. Yeah. But Kyle Busch is a tough competitor, that's for sure.
The last 3 races for this team were not up to the usual level of accomplishment for them in the Sprint Cup Series. Yet Kyle's the first to win 3 races this season in the Sprint Cup Series. Any reaction to that contrast?
Well, I mean, I think we definitely have to see something else coming from Denny Hamlin's crew, and they had definitely issues with their pit stops on Saturday night, and that's got to change.
What sticks out for me is that Kyle Busch can win in good race cars, and I don't think he had a great race car. Some drivers lose with great race cars, and that's just this momentum we always speak to. That team has it going.
And like you said, there is such a little room for error. If you have a little bit of error, you're done. And that's what happened to Denny Hamlin. I mean, it motivates some people for a bad pit stop, but most of the time it just kills you.
We'd like to know from you how many races you think Kyle Busch will win in NASCAR's top 3 series this season. Remember, looking for all top 3 put together now. Log on to ESPN.com, click on the NASCAR page. Let us know your thoughts, results later in the show. That is our poll for the day. Up next, the tire strategy that shuffled up the final finishing order at Richmond. A look at how the decision to take fresh tires late in the race was the right choice for most. The decision not to take tires left some who were stars of the show a little bit frustrated on the night. We'll look at some others who had their struggles. And aggressive driving. Not unusual on a short track, but did we see more than usual at Richmond?
NASCAR Now, brought to you by Orbitz.com. Only Orbitz has price assurance, where you get an automatic cash refund if the price of your Orbitz airfare drops.
The final result of the Richmond race really shaken up by some late pit strategy. Lap 308, most of the leaders pit, but Jeff Gordon, Carl Edwards, Jamie McMurray, and Sam Hornish stay on the track. Then at lap 347, most of the lead lap cars stay on the track, but Tony Stewart, Jeff Burton, Mark Martin, and Matt Kenseth pit, taking on fresh tires when the others have about 20 laps of green flag racing and 3 heat cycles on theirs. In the closing laps, the only one the older rubber works out for is Kyle Busch. Gordon and McMurray fade, while Stewart, Burton, and Martin charge up into the top 5 and good finishes.
We saw that in practice when guys would put just 4 or 5 lap fresher tires on, they could run a 10th quicker. And I was just yelling that I wanted tires at the end, but we just had a good enough car to kind of hang on, and the guys that put tires on caught us with just a few laps to go, so we were able to hold them off.
We got lucky and got a chance to come in with about 50 laps to go and get tires. So kind of backed into our runner-up finish, but Ryan drove his butt off tonight, and really proud of all of our guys. We had really good pit stops tonight. I'm really proud of the pit crew today. They've been working on it every week, and they really laid down some stops today, so really proud of those guys and just proud of the organization.
You know what? I had to drive harder to pass some of the lap cars than I have to win a lot of races. Man, those lap cars were hard to pass tonight. But it's just a free-for-all. I'm really proud of Cheez-Its and Carquest and everybody at Hendrick Motorsports. The SPY team was awesome on pit road tonight, and we came back.
We were on Kyle Busch's strategy, which was, we came into pits in front of him, we didn't have a great stop, lost some spots, and then we got shook up with the 5 car, and that spun him around on accident, and that put us back another 4 spots. So we were on the leader strategy. We had the winning strategy, we just didn't have the winning position.
Interesting thoughts there from some of the guys on how the tires played into the finish of Saturday night's race. I want to talk about the decisions these crew chiefs have to make when a caution flag comes out, to stop or not to stop, take fresh tires or not. It's easy in hindsight to look back at it, but what's happening at the time is tough.
Very tough. Anytime there's tire wear, like what we saw this weekend, the crew chiefs agonize over it. And when you know it's double difficult is when they ask you as a driver for your opinion.
What do you want to do? I'm hoping you'll tell me that. Follow the leader? I don't know.
That's one of the things that the crew chief does so well. Ray Abraham usually sits here, and he knows that, for the last 5 years, that thing goes green for the last 60 laps. So the crew chief knows how fast their car's going to be at the 60-lap mark. And that's what Steve Addington did. Says, okay, Kyle, we got guys coming in behind us. Let's stay out. The car only drops off. By the time they get to us, the tires are going to equal out.
The whole strategy thing, and it's such a short period of time to make the decision. It really becomes amazing to me that these guys are able to succeed as many times as they are under difficult circumstances.
Oh, absolutely. And I just have to say that I watched that audio from Tony Stewart, and I'm still amazed he didn't say anything critical. I mean, that's unusual that we see him speaking positively about tires and the stop they had. But you're right. I mean, they have to make these snap decisions, and I've got to believe the drivers have a little more input than you're suggesting.
You always want tires. As a driver, you want tires every time a yellow comes out, because that's goody, man. You want some goody on your tires.
But you also want track position.
Absolutely.
So you
have one or the other.
And so you have to give them some feedback. What does this particular set feel like?
And they're all different.
There's always a best set, isn't there, Randy?
There is, yeah. One set is awesome, and the next set is not so good.
It's funny because Jamie McMurray was saying after the race how he wanted tires. He wanted tires, but they made the call not to, and it ended up where he had a good top 10 finish and was probably the better call. Want to quickly touch on some of the other top 5 finishers on the night. Some notable performances from Richmond. We mentioned Tony Stewart, second place. That's pretty impressive.
It's very impressive. He's been doing this all year long. I think along those same lines as the organization just continues to build steam, and it's just, there's no end in sight.
Well, what I like about this team is what Ryan Newman has been able to do the last 2 weeks. I mean, Tony Stewart has sort of set the bar this season, and after that early disappointment for Ryan Newman, these last 2 weeks, he's jumped up into the top 10 now.
How about Jeff Burton getting spun out at lap 211 and coming back to finish third?
He said it helped the car, but I think getting spun out, it really makes a driver mad, and a mad driver's worth a couple tenths.
Touch on Ryan Newman again. He led 4 times for 45 laps. You heard his comments about how they had the same strategy that the race winner did. Still, 4th place, and he's up in the top, the chase qualified guys in points, right? Where was this guy starting in the season?
Yeah, what's confidence worth?
Yeah.
It's worth $1 million, and he's got it right now, and it's building. There was a point late in the race where Kyle passed him, and we saw it earlier, and he passed him back. You said, oh my goodness, Ryan Newman's for real here.
And Mark Martin, another great rally. This guy got spun out at lap 312 of 400 and still finished in the top 5.
Ricky was talking about momentum. I think Mark Martin has a little bit of momentum. We can talk about Kyle Busch all we want, but he's got 5 top 10 finishes. He had a very strong finish, a 6th at Richmond. He's got some momentum.
He was winded. Mark Martin worked Saturday night. He worked and he was winded.
And he got the result for it. A top 5 finish for the 5 car. Coming up later on the Monday Roundtable edition of NASCAR Now, aggressive driving, more than usual Saturday night or not? We'll discuss it. But coming up next, some who didn't have the finish they were hoping for or were expecting at Richmond. That when NASCAR Now returns.
Hey, I'm Kyle Busch, driver of the number 18 M&M's Toyota.
Winning twice in one day, Kyle Busch makes NASCAR history.
And you're watching NASCAR Now on ESPN2.
That's a pretty big deal. We continue our review of the Richmond race on Saturday night now with Randy LaJoy, Angelique Shengelis, and Ricky Craven, talking about some guys who had noteworthy performances. Let's tack a couple of others on to the end of that discussion as well. How about Sam Hornish Jr.? Started 28th, finished 6th. You gave him your Drive of the Day award.
Yes, I did. You know, a couple of weeks ago at Phoenix, he had his first top 10 career best. Comes to Richmond, where he's had great IRL success, won a couple races there. He might have knocked a couple people out of the way, but he still had a wonderful day.
Got squeezed around in traffic there, and he and Kevin Harvick made contact. But again, came back, had a great run, wound up finishing in 6th place for the 77. Look at this one. It was notable. Casey Mears, 41st to 9th.
And they mixed it up this week. A lot was made of that. Apparently, it's what he needed. And, you know, this is not an easy racetrack, guys. A lot goes into having a successful night. Going 41st to 9th, that's impressive.
That means you got the strategy right, stayed out of all the trouble, 15 cautions after all, stayed on the lead lap. Not an easy thing to do at Richmond.
As many guys as we saw spinning around, he wasn't one of them.
Yeah, exactly. Next topic, those who played starring roles in the race but had little to show for it when the checkers waved. Got to start that with Denny Hamlin. This pit stop dropped him from 1st to 8th, and they really never recovered from that. So to try and make up some of the track position, they made a 2-tire stop. That didn't work out very well. Another one. Kurt Busch ran in the top 5 much of the opening 3/4 of the race. 3rd at lap 100, 2nd at lap 200, 7th at lap 300. Finished 12th at lap 400. And Carl Edwards started 37th, got spun at lap 167, got the free pass at lap 292 when Kevin Harvick was crashed, stayed out with Jeff Gordon at lap 308, moved up to 2nd, passed by Kyle Busch on the restart with 50 laps to go, and then ended up 26th, last on the lead lap. Where'd he disappear to?
Exactly. It was like a magic trick.
Yeah.
Gone. You know, you made that point earlier. It's just, I think the tires caught up with him.
Yeah. Denny Hamlin. How incredibly disappointing.
Oh, that's what I was just going to say. Leads 148 laps and really has just, he has wanted nothing more than to win at this track. And it's heartbreaking to see this happen to him, but 2 bad pit stops. You know, the last one, as you said, really did him in.
1st to 8th when they had some lugs pop off the right front, right there. We've seen this a lot lately, too.
Give this kid credit, though. He didn't let the car leave without the lug nuts. It could have been worse.
Exactly right. That's one thing. I mean, as bad as a pit stop that kid had, you've seen him shaking his head as soon as he put the gun down. Those pit crew guys are ultimate professionals, and they hate it when they make a mistake. That poor kid is beating himself up. It's going to happen, man. We're all human. We will make mistakes.
But it just goes to show you that as competitive as the field is in today's Sprint Cup races, I mean, that mistake happened with plenty of time left in the race, and they couldn't overcome it.
I mean, we're talking about evening the playing field in a lot of ways. We've seen this time and again now with the lug nuts. The last few races, in particular, Phoenix, I'm thinking of, it is really evening the playing field in a lot of ways.
We talked earlier about strategy. In that scenario, it forced their hand. They took 2 tires on the next stop. That car was not the same on 2 tires.
Yeah. Kurt Busch. Factor the whole race, it seemed like, but he said they had a track bar adjustment with about 100 laps to go that didn't work, and they had to back off of that, and it was too late to kind of recover the lost ground.
Something big changed, because I'll tell you what, the beginning of the race, he charged from 17 to 1st. I thought he was a rocket.
How many times did you see that Blue Deuce win at Richmond?
Yeah.
He was up there all night long, and you would have thought that Rusty was driving that race car until the end of the race, and then, well, maybe Rusty fell out of his seat.
Overall, the Penske cars really looking good, looking better, with both Sam and Kurt having solid drives on Saturday night. David Stremme wasn't as fortunate, got involved in a couple incidents. Jimmy Johnson, he certainly had a night that we haven't seen very often for the 3-time defending champion. Started 15th, had a penalty on a lap 116 pit stop. That dropped him to 22nd. Had some brake problems. Got spun at lap 191. Here's the pit stop with the penalty. Dropped Jimmy back to 22nd at the time. Here we go with the spin. Lap 191, the brake problems. You got to slow down fast if you're going to go fast, right?
But you need 4 brakes. I mean, he only had 2 brakes. You know, he had a brake problem with the left front. They said it was leaking fluid. Run out of front brakes. Had only rear brakes. And when that happens, boy, you're going to go around in a hurry.
Then went from bad to worse at lap 325. Got swept into a wreck and finished 36th.
Night sucked for us. We had a brake problem that took us out of contention. We had a very fast race car. And something went on with the left front brake caliper line. It was losing fluid, and just finally ran the front master out of fluid, and I spun, and then we had to take 5 or 6 laps to fix it. And then I got caught up in other wrecks later. You know, it's more of a disappointment. I mean, we had such a good car coming up through the field and, you know, running time as fast as the leader, even when I only had 3 wheels with brakes. And then, you know, unfortunately got caught up in some wrecks. So definitely disappointed.
Besides the blunt assessment at the beginning of Jimmy's comments, thoughts on his night?
Yeah, let me set the record straight. For a driver to go to a short track without brakes is like a catcher trying to play ball without a mitt. You can do it for a while, but you're going to get hurt.
That's pretty good.
I don't think I'd want to try that.
No.
Don't try.
I don't think that would be a good
Not
idea,
at all.
but point taken.
Yeah, we haven't seen this from Jimmy Johnson and that team very often. 36 at a track where they'd won 3 of the last 4. So Johnson without the night that he was looking for at Richmond. Can't do a NASCAR TV show without Dale Jr., can we? Jr. finished 27th at a track where he has had pretty good results in the past. Really, about the only way I could describe it is he just really wasn't a factor all night. Junior here racing with Jeff Burton. Watch the car. That's not going to be good.
That's an indication of how bad things are. He didn't have the car underneath him.
Junior after the race was a wee bit frustrated.
Oh, I just had a terrible car. We're just trying to stay out of the way and trying to figure out how we can make something out of tonight. Well, I'm pretty frustrated. You know, the cars don't drive good, and the team ain't, you know, making a whole lot of sense. They're making tons of mistakes, and nothing seems to be working right. Nothing at all. I want to run better. You know, I just want to run better, but you know, I got a lot of patience.
You heard Junior's reaction after Saturday's race. Your reaction to that?
His confidence is gone. And when he had his swagger, he's hard to beat. He has 0 swagger, and his confidence is none. And race car drivers with confidence are pretty good bets.
And he doesn't have patience. I think he wants some changes now. And I mean, this car handled badly the whole race. He was constantly in communication with Tony Eury Jr. trying to get adjustments. They made the adjustments. Nothing ever transpired to make it go better.
He's uncomfortable. And until they make him comfortable in the car and give him the feel that he needs, he's going to continue to have problems.
NASCAR Sprint Cup standings after Richmond. Jeff Gordon back on top, a mere 10 points over Kurt Busch. But for the transfer spot, if you will, into the top 12, only 87 points separate 12th place Matt Kenseth from 18th place Dale Earnhardt Jr. They're not out of it, but they got some work to do, as you could hear from his comments. Later in the show, we preview the return of the Southern 500 at Darlington. Great to see that name back attached to the sports race there. But up next, we dig further into the weekend at Richmond, a weekend that was swept by Kyle Busch. Friday night, the NASCAR Nationwide Series at Darlington, 7 o'clock Eastern Time, ESPN2. Brad Keselowski is going to be our in-race reporter, by the way. Then Saturday, the pre-race edition of NASCAR Now before the Southern 500, 10 Eastern, also on ESPN2. We'll wrap up the Darlington weekend with our Monday roundtable next Monday night, 5 Eastern Time, here on ESPN2. Saturday's Richmond win, the back end of a Kyle Busch double dip. Friday night in the Nationwide Series race, he and Carl Edwards played their usual starring roles. Kyle leading at lap 159 when Carl came calling and went by. Carl led 71 straight laps until a restart with 22 to go, and the picture changed. Kyle to the outside again and around and to the lead, and he led the rest of the way to score his 3rd Nationwide Series win in 9 tries this year. Kyle Busch opening the weekend with a win. He finished it with the sweep on Saturday night. In fact, I shouldn't call the Friday night race the opening of his weekend, because Thursday night he ran at Southside Speedway in Denny Hamlin's short track charity event and won it. Then Friday, the previously pictured Nationwide Series victory, followed by Saturday night when he celebrated his 24th birthday with a victory in the Sprint Cup race, joining Cale Yarborough as the only Cup drivers to win on their birthday. Joining us now from the Joe Gibbs Racing Shops in Huntersville, North Carolina, is the president of the aforementioned Joe Gibbs Racing, J.D. Gibbs. J.D., congratulations. Quite a weekend, both Friday and Saturday.
Yeah, hey, thanks, guys. That doesn't happen often, so we really appreciate it.
I want to talk with you a little bit about the background of some things from the team owner's point of view, if you will. You had the winning car. You also had one of your drivers that dominated the race and left extremely disappointed. First things first, how do you choose what pit to stand in during the race?
Yeah, I usually just kind of walk in between them, and you know, my dad and I usually switch off, and it's just always changing. So if someone's running real well, I usually leave so I don't jinx those guys.
Yeah. So you win the race on Saturday night. You've got one car headed to victory lane, and one is disappointed back in the garage area. Where do you go? What do you do?
You know, really, for us, it's kind of, in a way, it's like having kids. You love them all equally, and you suffer with the guys. And for that whole team, Mike, Ford, and Denny, they were so good for so long, and that hurt so bad. And then on the other hand, you got Kyle and Victory Lane, and they're so excited. The guys from Mars and Combos are there. So it's always a balancing act. And we the exciting thing is we had really 3 good cars there, and I look forward to you know, going back next time.
So you kind of make the rounds, if you will, when the race is over, to touch base with all of them?
Yeah, you do, and check in, and I think obviously, usually from a driver's standpoint, a lot of times they'll leave early, but the guys are still there, and just try and, you know, hey, they had a good car, they did great work, had a rough pit stop with one of our best tire changers, and sometimes that happens in life, and I think hopefully over time you get a little perspective that we'll be back and we'll have an opportunity and hopefully make the most of it next time.
So, again, trying to look in behind the way a team operates. Now Monday morning you come back to the race shop, and I assume there's competition meetings and that kind of thing. Do you sit in on those, and what are those discussions like looking back on a race weekend like this past one?
Yeah, really for us, it's kind of those are really foundational meetings. The crew chiefs will meet and kind of give us direction. They're the guys week in, week out who have to live it and breathe it. And then the guys in the shop with Jimmy Maycar leading them will kind of put that into effect. And every week's a little bit different. You prioritize kind of what you're working on. We have a great foundation here, but you always, you know, want to be the best. And so that's kind of your driving force, really, week in, week out. We got a great group of minds here and guys that work really hard behind the scenes to make it happen on the track.
You and your dad have talked about, I think the phrase has been used was areas of focus, reviewing the end of last season to the start of this season. Now, your dad wouldn't tell us what those areas of focus are, mind you, and unless you want to reveal those here, I'll ask you if you feel you've made progress in those areas of focus so far.
Yeah, well, don't forget you're talking to a couple of PE majors with me and my dad. So areas of focus means just go fast. So, no, but we really have a list of different things that all of our guys bring together, and it's kind of been neat to watch where they work together. A lot of it's communication, and communication is difficult whether you have 400 people like we do or 400,000. That's the hardest thing you do, and for us to communicate week in, week out, I think our guys have made great progress there. We have a lot of work to do, but I think that'll be the key to our future success.
JD, back to Kyle Busch for a minute. Double dip wins for you at Richmond on Friday and Saturday nights. As you've gotten to know Kyle more, from what you might have expected him to be for your race operation when he came in, how's he different than what you thought?
Well, you know, what really struck me, I knew him fairly well before we met with him last year, but the year before last to get him here. But his first comment was, he goes, look, he goes, I can drive a race car. He goes, I need help off the track. I've made mistakes. I need someone to kind of work with me, help me. I'm 22 years old, and if you guys give me the opportunity, you know, I think I'd be grateful. And that meant more to me than anything. It used to be kind of, with Kyle, give me my guys and we'll take on the world. Now it's kind of like, hey, you know what? A lot of the world really likes you. And he's starting to get that, and you see it just with the media and with the team and his quick wit. And it's been fun to watch him mature on the track and off the track.
Last question real quickly. Charlotte Race Week's coming up. Anything special going on at your shops?
Yeah, no, as always, we're open during the Charlotte Weeks. We love to have people come by and the fans kind of see what goes on behind the scenes. We got some neat displays here with the NASCAR stuff. My brother's Supercross stuff is here. My son's Soapbox Derby car is here. So we got it all across the board. And we love to have everyone come by. Hopefully we'll have a great Charlotte show.
There you go. JD, congratulations on a great weekend, and thanks for the time as always. We appreciate it very much.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
JD Gibbs, president of Joe Gibbs Racing from the team shops in Charlotte. I'm fascinated by the way these race teams work. You know, you think about it, here you got one car that's in victory lane on Saturday night. The other team's really disappointed. Third guy's driven by a rookie who was there in the middle of the pack fighting his way to learn some things. And how you go about managing all of that between people is fascinating.
I loved JD Gibbs' illustration of 3 kids, and you love them equally, And sometimes you got to pump one of them up, and the other times you're putting your arm around them and congratulating them. And it's just a perfect illustration for anybody that has kids.
And it's all about pushing the right buttons, too. I think a great manager, a great coach, a great team owner knows how to push the buttons to get these guys going. If they're in a funk, if they're riding high, if they got the momentum, you got to keep pushing Kyle Busch's buttons the right way as well.
Yeah. It's just amazing. I mean, what JD has done. Coach Gibbs has always had the defense, the offense, the special teams. Well, now you got a race team. He has 400 employees, like they said.
Yeah.
And to get all of those people communicating, working together, I mean, that is one well-oiled machine right now.
But I still can't get him to tell me what those areas of focus are yet.
X's and O's.
Yeah, that's what it's got to be. Still to come on the NASCAR Now Monday Roundtable, a preview of Saturday's NASCAR Sprint Cup Series race at the tricky track Too Tough to Tame. Can't wait for that one. But up next, look back at a final issue from Richmond, aggressive driving, more or less than usual.
Short track racing can produce some amazing results sometime, and that's one of the reasons so many people come out to Richmond. Anybody really could win this thing.
Have a good, smooth day in here. You guys are doing a great job. We'll keep up the great work.
400 laps, bud. Let's go get them tonight.
Green flag goes in the air, and we are underway. It's a dead heat between Brian Vickers and Jeff Gordon as to who's going to lead this first lap.
Fender out in front for Jeff Gordon.
Did lead that one lap, so that's 5 points, just so you know. Really? Cool.
Jeff Gordon has been trying to work this lap traffic and get away from Denny Hamlin, but Denny will not let him check out.
I'm going to figure out a damn way around him. You get to his bumper, he'll let you go. That's what he tells me.
Denny's just not going to be denied that that car is working about as good as anything out there.
Now Kyle gets a shove from Brian Vickers.
Go tell NASCAR to take care of that before I do.
Here's Busch, he's shoving Vickers. Contact, and both of them go up the bank.
Never touched him, thank you.
You can bet if that yellow flag comes out, it's going to be a land rush down there for everybody to get into their pit.
I think we need to pit, get 4 tires and fuel. We're going to get that track bar down. 4 tires and fuel, guys. 3, 2, 1.
Slow stop for Denny Hamlin. He's going to lose at least 8 to 10 positions.
You're all the way, 4,000, 4,000. I appreciate that pit stop, guys. We are way off. Don't worry about it. You're doing all you can. I know we're not good enough to win it. We're just trying, so I'm with you.
Everybody's getting physical at this point of the race at Richmond, and the battle for the lead is on. Kyle Busch is there. He'll complete the pass.
God, it's nice to have a motor like that.
Meanwhile, Kyle Busch is waving bye-bye to the field.
All right, man, here it is. White flag. Never thought I'd hear you say such a sweet thing.
Fans on their feet watching Kyle Busch flash by them on his way to Gatorade Victory Lane.
You guys are awesome. Happy birthday, dude. That was freaking awesome. May 2nd, baby. Woo! Thank you.
Kyle Busch wins the Crown Royal 400 at Richmond on his birthday.
The 15 caution flags in Saturday night's race at Richmond tied the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series record for that track. We saw a lot of bumping and banging. Some thought maybe a little too much. So my question is, did we see any more aggressive driving than we normally see? Or was this just typical short track racing at Richmond? The drivers had their opinions certainly after the race.
I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say too aggressive. Everybody just wants to go there at the end. You got some guys that were taking tires, some guys didn't, and you had to move them to get to where you wanted to go. So, but I had 2 or 3 guys dive down on the apron and slide up into me, you know, and that's being a little bit too aggressive. It was some of the newer guys, you know, and that's understandable. I did that kind of stuff when I was new too. Eventually they'll learn and figure it out. Hopefully it won't cause a big mess between now and then.
I mean, it's racing, you know. You got to be aggressive. That's what you're out there to do. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, lap cars are brutal, but they're racing too. I mean, yeah, I don't really know what you do about it. That's just kind of how the racetrack is, and that's why they put so many people in the stands. I mean, if you don't want to have to deal with that stuff, you should probably find a different profession.
Well, I think it's worse at Richmond. Lap traffic is probably worse here than anywhere else because you're running pretty quick, and when guys put tires on, the bottom is just it's the preferred line. I mean, you see the guy that's leading the race fight so hard to get to the bottom, and if you're in 4th or 5th, you'll just pull down and get in the bottom lane and just hope that you can root the guys up off the bottom.
There were some guys that were less than impressive to be around tonight, but you know, I guess and it seems as time goes on, there's less etiquette and less give and take and more idiots out there than we've ever had before. So good thing is we survived it and got through it and had 2 cars in the top 4.
So the question for the 3 of you is, did you see anything out of the ordinary on Saturday night?
Well, nobody ended up in the grandstand. You know, I mean,
yeah, okay.
The week before the week before at Talladega, all the accidents were from people blocking. Well, you know, these accidents were people running into each other, not from guys blocking, but just too much throttle and okay, just getting aggravated. You can get aggravated with guys in a hurry at Richmond.
I'll tell you what I thought was unusual is Carl Edwards getting spun, Mark Martin getting spun, Jeff Burton. These guys don't go looking for trouble. These are guys that manage the race and treat people the way they like to be treated. And they're getting spun. I thought that was unusual.
So do you think it's those idiots that Tony Stewart was referring to?
I think Mark, Jeff Burton, and the 99, I think they were idiots.
Well, and we discussed, I mean, I thought Tony Stewart brought up an interesting point about etiquette, and we were talking, Ricky, about, you know, what is track etiquette, and especially on a track like this?
Etiquette is something that you establish doing this over years, over time, and you learn from drivers like I just mentioned. Jeff Burton, Mark Martin. Randy, you speak to this. These 2 guys teach you how to race the right way, and as a consequence, they seldom get turned around because you just don't do it to guys that don't do it to you.
You drive somebody the way they drive to you. Right. And if somebody just drives you dirty as all get out, well, that guy's around you, well, you better look out, pal. You better check your belts because you might need them.
Do you think, I'm sorry, I mean, do you think, you mentioned the cars, you know, that maybe they're a little braver with the cars with the right side.
Absolutely.
And you think that's part of it as well?
The cars are very strong. These cars, you could bounce them into the fence, you could hit them, and everything lines up. So, yes, the race cars definitely are a tribute to the rough driving.
Here's the thing I think's changed the etiquette that Tony Stewart was talking about. The free pass rule. The lap down cars now have to race each other. They can't give it up because it might get them back on the lead lap, and who knows where they might finish. Talk about Darlington next.
It's going to be a drag race. Whoa! They touch! Craven got him! What a finish! Have you ever? No, I've never.
So this weekend, the NASCAR Nationwide Series goes to Old Darlington Raceway. Last year's race, everybody had trouble. Carl Edwards crashed lap 7. Kyle Busch ran into the wall. Tony Stewart dominated in 1. What's the story this time? 7 o'clock Eastern, Friday night, ESPN2. Find out. We sent Ed Hinton to Darlington to set the stage for the weekend. We begin with one of racing's greatest rivalries at its oldest track.
This is the toughest old racetrack in the world.
Road racetrack still too tough to tame.
It's a tough place.
Your arch rival, Richard Petty, y'all had, what was it, 63 times y'all finished 1-2. You won 33, he won 30. Of course, he always said you had the better cars, but...
Yeah, he was the one that had the factory back car.
That's right.
I built my own.
But here there was no rivalry. I mean, he had a tough time at this place. Did you ever take any quiet satisfaction out of that?
I never did even think about it.
Really? Did he ever ask you any advice or anything about the place?
No, we've always been friends, you know, and talked, you know, for the race. And, of course, every time I see him, I tell him he ain't, you know.
Especially here, I bet.
Well, I tell him everywhere I see him, you know. But we're good friends.
Yeah.
He's my hero.
Gotta love that. You know, Richard Petty and David Pearson raced each other 500-plus times in NASCAR Sprint Cup races, 550 to be exact. Petty won 10 more of those races than the Silver Fox. The two combined for a record 63 1-2 finishes, 33 of those won by Pearson. For fans who maybe didn't go back that far and don't remember that period of the sport, the only way I could describe it to you is that Petty and Pearson were the Ollie and Frazier of NASCAR at the time. They traded heavyweight punches.
Absolutely, they did, Alan. And I have to say, if we're going to fast forward to now, I think we're missing that a little bit in this sport. And I don't think we'll have that. I mean, it was a different era, a different time. I know that. But I do think that's something that I wish we could get back.
Yeah, I mean, these guys, they were just incredible. And then you put that skill at that track. What a show.
Yeah, you saw two drivers at their best, Joe DiMaggio, Ted Williams, another comparison.
There you go. Little Red Sox Yankees in there. We like that. They're playing baseball this week in New York, right? Randy, you won there. Ricky, you won there. Why was that track so tough?
Everything about that track. The track was built for 140 miles an hour, and you're running 180 there. And it's just 100 foot wide, but you're only raced on 20 foot of it.
So what he's saying is it runs like a super speedway, but you drive it like a short track.
Yeah.
That's the conflict.
Yeah. It's always interesting to me how, if you've never been there before, when you walk in the gates for the first time, you stand there, and drivers who've won all kinds of races stand there and they go, oh my God, how am I going to do this?
I was scared to death when I first went in there.
Really?
Nothing in New England prepared me for Darlington.
Well,
What
and
about you?
the track has been repaired. I mean, it's smoother, and I think they fully expect it to be faster even this weekend.
We can't show a Darlington race or talk about a Darlington race and have Craven here and not watch this.
Alan, it took me 10 years to figure out how to finish a race there.
Yeah. That's the way you finish it.
And you still,
the other guy.
And you still crashed while you were finishing,
That's
right? Yeah. You know, things change, but things stay the same at Darlington. Last year when Kyle Busch won the race, he must have bounced off the wall with the right side of his car, what, 50, 100 times it seemed like? The right side of that car took a bruising, and yet it wound up in victory lane. I think he scared the M&Ms off it.
It's amazing. He above average hits against the wall.
And that's been something that's been an issue at Darlington for decades now. In fact, since they opened the racetrack back in 1950. And I talked about things changing and things staying the same. Little demonstration for us of how things change over the years and how they stay the same where the right side of these race cars is concerned here. We put our Home Depot race car to use here in our Home Depot garage.
You know, part of the objective for the driver at Darlington is to preserve the car as much as you preserve the tires. How do you do that? Well, you got to maintain this margin right here. Keep the body, the outside of the right side, so that you have this margin between the tires, because you don't want the tires hitting the wall. That's where the problems begin. So how did we do that when we won there, Randy?
Well, you know what? That's one thing, that old 4x4 piece of wood. You take this thing, you put it inside the car, right here. Well, that gave you that buffer, so you can maintain that 2 inches of cushion that you had. You also can play the race car. You want to hit the wall dead sideways. You don't want to hit with the front. You don't want to hit with the back. You want to hit it dead sideways so you can just keep on getting it like Kyle Busch did last year.
And of course, NASCAR continues to evolve. With the new car, they've made it, I guess, more Darlington friendly. They put this foam in between the roll cage and the outer skin, and it acts as that buffer. No more 4x4s. We have it built into the cars now, and it's part of the safety devices. And the drivers will use that, like Kyle Busch did last year, lap after lap.
So everything changes, but everything stays the same. You got to have something in between the roll bars and the right side sheet metal to keep the car square for the race. Southern 500 name is back. Like it? It's not Labor Day weekend.
I love it. I really do, Alan. And I think when you go back to listen to Brian France last year, he talked about going back to the sport's roots. And I think this is a very important aspect of that, going back to the roots. That name is very important to the sport.
I'm a kid growing up watching racing on television. It was the Daytona 500, of course the Talladega, and you had to have the Southern 500 in there with the Coca-Cola 600. So, you know, it's a pillar, and I'm so glad they brought it back.
The tradition, Chris Browning has brought it back. It's a wonderful facility down there, and that place is just, it smells with tradition. You go there and you can smell the
Now, wait a minute. We could interpret that one of two ways here. It's a good smell.
Yeah, absolutely. But you know, catfish smell.
It is kind of retro, right? It has that retro feel, when, like going to an old bowling alley or something. You know, they haven't changed it enough, so it's any different. Has that same feel.
I think it's a good smell. Tradition is in this particular case. Darlington this weekend, of course, we'll be all over the stories from there on NASCAR Now throughout the weekend. We're coming back with news and notes and final thoughts next.
NASCAR Now, brought to you by Pizza Hut's Toscani Pastas. Choose from 4 delicious recipes, delivered only by Pizza Hut.
Couple things to touch on here. Speedway Motorsports has officially requested a 2010 Sprint Cup date for Kentucky Speedway. SMI is reportedly willing to give up a date at one of its 7 other tracks to get Kentucky on the schedule. Bankruptcy judge has postponed his decision on whether Chrysler can start transferring its assets to the new entity partnered with Italian automaker Fiat. That decision due now on Tuesday. And Fenway Sports Group president and Red Sox COO Mike D has become the CEO of Miami Dolphins and Dolphin Stadium. Roush Fenway Racing co-owner John Henry called D D's departure a great loss. If you look on the NASCAR owner points, Mike D is listed as owner of the 6th car for David Reagan. Now on ESPN.com, David Newton writes that Richmond winner Kyle Busch is undoubtedly the best 24-year-old driver in NASCAR, and one day may be the best ever, period. So how many races will Kyle Busch win this year? Total, all 3 series. He's at 8 currently. You said 10 to 14. You said?
I say 28.
Yeah.
I say 21.
28, 21, wow.
I say twice that many.
Twice that many?
Yeah, between 20 and 28.
Wow.
You're going out on a limb there, Ricky. Come on.
Yeah, he went 0 for 10 last year in the shoot, in the chase. Yeah, but he's not going to do that this year. He's going to win 3 or 4 of them.
Of course, did I get the number right from the poll? Because, see, I'm sitting here reading this monitor in the studio, and it may be my 47-year-old eyes are failing me. I can't tell. It was right. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, let me borrow your glasses, Randy. Angelique, thanks. Ricky, thank you. Randy, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Darlington this weekend, and Kyle Busch on NASCAR Now's Tuesday show. Look it up.